Okay, we're going to draw Olivia today. And here we go. So we're going to begin with the normal start. You know what craniums look like. And Olivia's cranium is not that different than anyone else's. It's a good idea to try to make it about the same size as it appears on your screen or a little smaller. Don't make it any bigger than it appears on your screen. So remember, craniums are about 20% wider than they are tall. Ear holes go near the bottom. Jawline starts in front of the ear hole, like that. The nose level is going to be about level with the bottom of the cranium. The brow ridge is going to be a little bit just below the center of the cranium here. And it's a good idea to look for the facial angle. So the facial angle is the line that you can imagine between the tip of the nose and the tip of the chin. So let's draw that angle, make sure that's about correct. And let's double check and make sure that let's check her eye level is here, top of her cranium is about here, and the bottom of her chin is here. So if anyone is doubting that her eyes are in the middle of her head, you can measure for yourself, and you'll see that her eyes are exactly in the middle of her head. Okay, notice I didn't go all the way to here because I'm accounting for some thickness of the hair. For the purposes of our drawing, what we just learned is that the cranium slopes down slightly, the front half, so we can block that in. And the forehead sort of smoothly flows into the brow ridge like that. And the eye level is on Olivia really exactly behind the indent under the brow ridge. Olivia, is that something you found when you put the pencil, when we did the thing, when you put the pencil on your face like that, did it sort of go right in front of your eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your indent is a little lower than average. So your eyes are going to go right behind, your eye's going to go right behind that indent. And everyone double check and make sure that's ending up centered on the head. Okay, so the one way you can really get a terrible grade on one of these drawings is if you don't have the eye centered on the face. So I might need to shorten my chin just a little to keep that eye in the middle. Okay, so before I get into the features, I often find it's useful to sort of block in the hair. So when I say block in, I mean think of it in terms of a series of straight lines. So I'm seeing an angle like this that goes down just below eye level and then back over the ear and then angling forward just behind the jawline And then angling back towards the shoulders. And one thing you learn to do after you get used to drawing a lot is you start to compare things that aren't right next to each other. So I'm seeing this angle is very similar to the facial angle. Can you see that? And it's really useful to start to look for sets of parallel lines. This angle here is really similar to the angle of the throat. You see that? And most people don't think to compare things that are that far from each other. What beginners do is they just compare neighboring features, but we're trying to learn to look across the face or the figure and compare things that are a little further away from each other. So my blocking in the hair is going to continue with this line, which if I extended it would sort of hit right in front of the ear. So that sort of gives me an idea of what I need to do for that. This line here is roughly parallel to the facial angle again. So I'm comparing this angle to this angle. That's helping me with that. And I've got to bring the hair up above the top of the cranium, back here. And this angle here is a little different from anything else, but I see it about like that. So now when we do the features, it's going to feel like we're adding features to a head that where we can already kind of see the scale of the head, and that's important. When you're drawing features just in a void, it's very difficult to know how big they should be. But when you draw them into a blocked-in head, you're much more apt to make them the right size. So I'm going to pause here and have a quick look around, make sure everyone's done this block-in correctly. The things I'm going to be checking for, again, eyes have to be in the middle of the head. The nose has to line up bottom of the nose with the bottom of the cranium. That's really important. And this facial angle has to be sloping back at about 20 degrees at an angle similar to the hairline up here. So let's see how many people are good with that, and then we will resume. Okay, so let's zoom in now on some of the features. Now, this is what a lot of beginners like to do this right away, like just pay attention to the individual features. We're going to do it only after the structure is all sorted out. So notice this big curve kind of flows into the forehead like that. And when you're trying to figure out how far back to put the eye, it's always useful, to me anyway, to picture if we could fit another eye in between this space. And you see how you can pretty much fit another eye right in there. So make sure when you draw the eye that there's room for a whole other eye in the space between the eye and the indent. Don't make the eye too big, and leave room for the eyelid. The upper lid is definitely showing. And these are things that we've talked about in the abstract, but we're going to see them in real life now. That the eyelid sticks out way past the front of the eye. That's the thickness of the skin of the lid. And there's the lash. And the other thing we talked about that maybe some of you didn't believe me, but the iris is at the pupil's at the back of the iris, not the front. Can you see that? That dark area is not in the front, it's at the back of the iris. If you draw it at the front, it looks really weird. And the lower lid also sticks out past the eye, and then there's a little soft plane change out here defining the front margin of the lower lid. Now it's going to be helpful when we try to draw the nose. We want to look at how far back the ala comes. And what I'm going to do is bring a plumb line up. That's like, literally a plumb line is when you have a string and you hold it up and it's got a weight on the bottom, and it hangs plumb. It hangs straight up and down. What you want to learn to do is imagine plumb lines to get vertical relationships straight. So if I pull a plumb line down from the front of her eyelid, it's going to tell me where the back of the ala is. So the back of the ala is, this curve happens right about here. And for the angle of the nose, here's another pair of parallel lines. If we look at the angle of the forehead, see that angle? It's very similar to the angle of the nose. Can you see that? So if you have that angle right and you sort of copy it, that'll give you the general angle of the nose. And for the roundness of the nose, what I like to do is picture a circle at the end of the tip and sort of what's the radius of that circle. Really pointy noses are going to have really tiny radii. Notice the radius of this circle is about half as wide as the overall nose from front to back. So that's going to help me get the right amount of curvature into this. And then from that curve, we're going to go almost straight at a slight angle down towards the philtrum. And the philtrum happens, normally what I taught you is the philtrum happens about halfway between the back of the nose here and the front of the nose here. On Olivia, it's maybe a little further back than that, but not much. So the philtrum happens right about here. And before we go on towards the mouth, we're going to try to get the nostril in there. Sort of like a tic-tac shape, and it's centered above the philtrum. Can you see that? So it's like, and it's a little rounder on the top and a little flatter on the bottom. There is a sort of sharp plane change around the bottom of the ala, but I'm going to create that with a broken kind of shading line and not like a hard outline, because it's not a hard overlap. So we end up with a nose sort of like this. I'm not assessing this to see if it looks like her yet. I'm just sort of going through all the steps, and then I'm going to assess at the end. That's something I talk about a lot, so you're probably sick of hearing about it, but it's really important not to compulsively revise your work as you go, like all the time. Like you want to like finish a first draft, and then you want to go back and see what might need to be improved. In the same way that if you're writing a paper or a short story. If you start revising every sentence as you write it, you're never going to finish. And those of you who have a hard time keeping up with me, that's probably what you're doing, is just compulsively drawing, erasing, and that's not a great habit. So notice I did a little shading to indicate the form of the eyebrow. I'm going to shade above the upper eyelid to show how that's curving under. I'm using mostly my first shading direction, so go the other way if you're right-handed. And we're going to take a look at the mouth now. Maybe somebody with a ruler can tell us about Olivia's proportions. Does anyone have a ruler out there?
Yeah. Oh, I do have a ruler.
So, how many centimeters is this distance?
Almost 2 inches.
Almost 2 inches? How many centimeter, or
Like 4.5.
4.5 centimeters?
Yeah.
Okay, how many centimeters is the bottom part? How many centimeters is this?
Actually, yeah, the first one's like 4.
4? Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
It's just like long. Put it upside down. Yeah. There you go. Oh my God, can you get away from me?
So this is 4?
The long one's 9 and the other one's 4.
You think this is 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I figured it wasn't 9.
What'd you say? Is it 9?
It's 7.5.
7.5?
I trust her way more than you.
We can't decide if it's 7.5 or 9 centimeters?
Let's go to the middle. Let's go to the middle of 8.
No, let's get.
I got 7.5.
Okay. So this is 4 and this is 7.5.
Yeah. Don't listen to me.
Okay, so remember we learned that and in fact, if I sort of missed on this line. What about if we measure right from the top of the philtrum? Does that make it 3.75? This part? Now I just erased it, sorry. Okay, what I'm guessing is that this distance is about 1/2 of this distance. Is everyone agreed on that?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, so this is about 3.75, this is about 7.5. So those are the proportions I taught you, and I just want you to see that they hold perfectly true in this case. So if we know where the bottom of the chin is, and we mark 1/3 of the way down, that's going to be where the mouth comes in. So what we're going to do is draw the rest of the philtrum, which is a very smallish arc. Comes out just a little bit, and then we're going to take a dive back right here at about 45 degrees so that we hit this line, which is 1/3 of the way down. I'm going to put the facial angle back in, and you can see that we have a nice space here to here. Now the bottom lip is a little half circle, not really a half circle in this case. And see how the bottom bottom lip comes closer to the facial angle. This little space goes back at about 45 degrees. See how that's a parallel to this? These are both 45 degrees, and then we curve back around, and the chin has to touch this line. And then the throat goes almost straight back, but it actually goes up just a little bit before it goes back down again into the throat. Okay. It's important to realize that Mr. Alec makes mistakes. I made the facial angle a little too shallow. Can you see that? And I can tell because if I go straight up from the outside of the chin, I should be hitting the eyelashes. So if I go straight down from the eyelashes, my chin should be way back here. So I have to redraw this entire bottom half to account for a shallower facial angle. And hopefully it's going to look more like her after I do that. I also need to draw the rest of the mouth, which goes back about a little further back than the back of the ala, like that. And don't outline the upper lip, but we do want to define it. We're going to define it by just shading it like this. And the bottom lip we're going to define by just putting in this shadow under the bottom lip right in the front there. And then we're going to shade this little shelf about like this. So there are really two ways to draw. One way is analytically, which is what I'm doing now because I'm teaching this. Another way to draw is more instinctively, and sometimes my drawings come out better if I stop thinking so much about what I'm doing. But when you're starting out, analytically is the best way to succeed. So like you want to do more measuring when you're a beginner. And it's sort of like a guitar player who's starting out has to look at her hands all the time to see what the chords are doing. And obviously, if that was what playing guitar always involved, then nobody would bother with it because it wouldn't be very fun and it wouldn't sound very good. But eventually we get confident enough that we don't have to watch what our hands are doing as much. Okay, we're going to do a shadow map of the jawline. So this is pretty much where the light ends, and the shadow extends all the way down onto the neck. And there's a little more shadow inside the eye socket there. And you'll see a little halftone under the cheekbone. So if you know where the cheekbone is, that's helpful. And a very slight halftone along the front of the cheek where that plane changes there. Another one very slight at the corner of the mouth. Those halftones make a big difference for expression, but if you go too hard on them, they also will make Olivia look like she's 40 years old. So be careful. Use a really light touch. Now I'm going to be really careful to get my ear in the right place. One way to do that, to check your work, is to triangulate. Really important technique. See, here's the earlobe. And once again, I'm going to draw something on here. This is how I would think about it. Okay, so here's the nostril. I'm going to go from the middle of the nostril to the middle of the ear to the tip of the chin. And you see the shape of the triangle I just created? If you can picture something like that, and if your triangle ends up the same in your drawing, then you know that the ear is far enough back. Feels to me like I could make my ear just a hair further back based on that triangulation I just did. So, but I was close. The top of the ear is going to be level with the top of the eye. And we're going to see if we can identify the parts of Olivia's ear. There's the tragus, the antitragus, the helix, slightly covered with hair, and the antihelix. I just went way too fast, but you guys you're getting good at this now, right? So now you'll see me making really small adjustments, and I want to remind you that that's the really amazing thing about drawing people, unlike anything else in the world. Getting it to look like the person can be a matter of, a 1/16 of an inch. There's really nothing else that where the tolerances are that fine. Like, I got to move the neck back a little, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Here's that hairline. I'm going to move the line between the lips like less than 1/16 of an inch down. And now we're not just drawing the cranium, we're drawing the hair, and that's going to give us more. The hair is obviously bigger than the skull. And the hair is obviously dark, so I'm going to do a first shading over the whole blocked in area of hair. So this is what I would consider a sort of rough draft. This is the point in the drawing where I'm going to back on the other, get a little further away from it, and I'm going to look side by side. I'm going to get my drawing as close as I can get to the reference. And I'm going to ask myself what could have gone wrong. And I'm going to say I need just a little more depth to the throat line. You're going to see different things in your drawing. And I'm going to say the eye could just be like a hair further forward. Hard to say until I try it. And maybe the forehead just a tiny, tiny bit steeper. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is that when you've been staring at something for quite a while, it can be really hard to see what's wrong with it. So I'm going to take a minute to look at your drawings, and I'll bet you that when I come back and look at mine again, I'm going to think of something to make it better, because it's not quite there yet. Okay, so now that I've had a chance to look at all your drawings, I'm going to take another look at mine. And see if I can make any improvements. Can we put the classwork in the video?
Not that stupid. Not that.
Wait, when is it the last 30 minutes you do that?
Oh my god. That. I don't know last week. I think it, no, I think it's if you log in.
It doesn't matter when it lands, it's still.
You're like the hardest man to contact. I was like calling you and stuff, and I did just say, oh, I'm done. I was gonna call your mom that. Well, no, like on Saturday.
Oh. What did I do tonight? So we were playing outdoor football. And
They're Chinese.
no, I mean, Bobcat was saying, anything Chinese, roll me to the ground.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, but.
You know we
So we try to wrestle each other.
tackle soccer, and Mr. Anderson came out of get first two goals and
Everyone went off. I just remember everybody like tackling Zach.
you don't have you. I don't have you. Oh,
Then every time we got the ball, you know. What are you doing? I can go this. Liz, if I can go this goal to the state.
yeah, good. Our cover is this. Really? Not close. No, dude. I know. Hurry that. I mean, not enough. I think Olivia actually had the best drawings herself. So.
Okay, who wants to share their drawing with all the YouTube fans?
Actually, Will's isn't even that bad. Like,
Mine's on the closer side.
Will's made me look.
I'm going to pause the video and get a pile going. Okay, to all the viewers at home, all my hundreds of subscribers, here's a rare treat. You're going to see all the drawings from this intro to drawing class at Lime Old Lime High School. We're not going to mention any names, but we're going to see how everyone did. And so when you see your own drawing, you can, especially in the context of what everyone else did, it gives you a chance to see what you think you might need to do differently next time. They're really remarkably good. This is a pretty amazing group of drawings for an intro class.
What did you say, Alma? Olivia. Really?
Now, remember, the first job is to make sure your drawing looks human. And these all look human. Yeah, this is the model's drawing, so she had a little bit of an advantage. A little familiarity with her facial structure. We won't mention. Wonder. Yeah, why is there red all? Okay.
I don't think Evan likes me that much. You put red all over.
Okay, Evan, can I change one thing on your drawing? So look, Evan, look, this, you put the mouth closer to the bottom of the head than the nose. So look what happens if, all I'm going to do is move the mouth up and you're going to see how much better it looks. See, the mouth goes 1/3 of the way down and then this is 2/3. Okay, so that was your only big problem, Evan.
Oh my God. Well,
Not even that bad.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're trying to preserve anonymity here.
Not that bad. It looks sort of resembles.
Yeah,
looks like the mob was in the person.
very nice. Good job. And
Brody, that has to be you. That has to be you. Who did that?
yeah,
That was really good.
nice job.
Good job, Kara. Well, geez.
And
Why are you laughing when?
I'm not. I'm good.
I like that one. Who did that?
great job. So, reminder to my audience at home, these are many of them freshmen and sophomores and intro to drawing class in high school. So, thanks for watching, everybody. That was fun.